So thinking about money that gets spent from projects. So one project that had been started and it's sitting down in Port Burwell Beach right now is this guy,
Beauty.
right? This big submarine, not the kind you eat. So the Ojibwa or the Ojibwa, I'm not sure how do you say that properly?
Ojibwa.
Ojibwa. Okay. So I was gone when this all happened, right? It was part of my years when I was gone, but I heard that they were going to put a big submarine in Port Burwell. So tell us a little bit about how that came about, that this got dragged over there, and maybe what went wrong, I guess you could say, because I'm back now, but I've heard that it just didn't come out the way maybe some people imagined or wanted or something, and ended up being a lot of debt and a lot of lawsuits involved. So that's what I've heard. So give me a little bit of, let's get the backstory first. How did it come about that this came here?
Yeah, anyway, it's a retired sub.
Okay.
You have been through it, Henry?
I haven't, no.
Okay. I went through it. It's very, very intriguing, incredibly interesting. But
Okay.
how it got here, is they were trying to find a place for it. And I guess Burwell was just one of the places that got picked. Uh, there was a lot of political maneuvering and stuff. Not a At that time, I don't think it was very desirable. Um, yes, it should attract tourism, and I do believe it does to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's doing some of what it was supposed to do. So I believe it's still it's run and owned by the Elgin Military Museum. Bayham, the municipality of Bayham, does not own it.
Okay, so Elgin owns it,
Elgin
or the
Military
military.
Museum.
Okay,
They run it and own it. If they haven't changed names or something,
okay.
that's who used to own it anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, the total cost was supposed to be $6 million at the time, and we're talking 10 years ago now.
Yeah,
Six
that's like
million
that's like
dollars.
12 million now.
It is. You're probably right.
Yeah,
And so that was the cost of the project.
yeah.
And before it started going, I believe the project, they asked Bayham, the municipality of Bayham, to co-sign for the $6 million loan. And at the council at the time voted in favor of co-signing.
So this was before you were, like,
Oh
long
yeah,
before your
yeah,
time, right?
yeah. And they decided to co-sign, and we got stuck with the bill. They didn't pay their bills, and so they took the money, the $6 million from the bank, and we got stuck with it. So that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah,
There's a lot involved in that, right?
yeah.
It's got 2 feet, right? Two pillars that it sits on.
Mm-hmm.
One of the pillars is actually on private land, and the other pillar is on the municipality of Bayham's land. So
Oh,
even that could get complicated. I don't think it is right now, but it
okay.
could get
Yeah, I
complicated.
was just gonna say that sounds like trouble waiting to happen.
Yes, and it's not very easily moved, right? So
Yeah, yeah. No kidding.
a very interesting fact about it is you go in there and you it is so intriguing. It is so, first of all, you're a smaller guy than I am.
Uh-huh.
You could probably stand up straight in most of the areas. I could in half the areas. It's quite small. But
Okay.
anyway, so you ask the people that are giving you the tours are actually some of the people that are very informed,
Mm-hmm.
that have had relatives, or I don't know if they themselves have been in there, or they have been in different subs working for the Canadian Navy. And so um, they cannot tell you where that submarine served ever, anywhere where it was. They cannot tell you anything like that. Like, was it in the Second World War? Was it,
Mm.
was it here? No, it's completely top secret. I found
Yeah.
that very intriguing.
Mm.
It's retired, it's old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'd like to think, what's the harm in knowing these
Yeah, give me a
details?
little history of it,
No,
right? But
not
yeah,
not
I guess I could see too that the sensitive information, that because that also tells you, if this was involved in such and such back then that means that such and such is probably happening right now as well. And then,
yeah, yeah, you never know, right? So
yeah.
and so we got stuck with the loan. Um, Bayham, the municipality of Bayham has taken legal steps to make sure that we never will own it. We don't want to own it. So 10 years ago, if I understand correctly, they were gonna pay $1 million to have it destroyed, to have it
Mm,
disassembled.
okay.
So,
Like
like you,
before it was brought, you
yes,
mean?
before it was
Okay.
brought here, it was going to cost them $1 million to disassemble it.
Okay.
So to have it disassembled now, like you said, that would be 2 million now. So
Mm-hmm.
we never want to own it,
Mm.
because of a lot of the legalities around it and stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? So, um, so yeah,
So that you don't have to pay for that then as well.
yeah, that's
Okay.
right. And so some of the really, really, really good news now is, um, it's paid for. We paid for the debt.
Well, that's what I just heard. Was it 2 issues ago in the Elmer Express? I think it was. And then I read that it was paid off after all these years, and that's where I found out that you were actually part of the council. Or I was wondering because it was mentioning your name and some of these things that were going on, and so I figured, okay, you must have some involvement in the local councils and stuff, and so which turned out to be true. But one thing that I appreciated about something that I read in there in the article was something that you said in there, and it's different than what we hear a lot of nowadays. I don't know when this happened, maybe a number of years ago, but you had mentioned something to people about we didn't want to leave this debt for our kids, something along that lines. We wanted to we wanted to pay for it so that our kids don't have to. Something about that, and I thought, well, that is really nice to actually think about that because you see so much stuff happening nowadays where I mean the world's in debt, everything's in debt everywhere, and we're
Everywhere.
thinking the kids will figure it out. They'll grow up and we'll let them deal with the mess that we've made. Right? That's what's happening. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to, push this aside, pretend I don't see it. And so when I read that, you know, no, let's not let our kids deal
Yeah.
with it. They don't need this debt on top of everything else, they're going to have. I just thought, wow, that's so much better to think of it that way.
Thank you. If you, yeah, thinking about that and talking about that, just an
Mhm.
example is the US has like 40 some trillion dollars.
I think it's 37 or
Oh,
38 now. Yeah,
okay.
so it's close to, yep,
Close.
40.
I don't even know how much a
It's going to be
trillion,
40 now anyway.
I don't even know how much
We're
a
seeing.
trillion is. I have no idea what that even looks like
It's,
remotely.
yeah,
But my point is, I was going to make is they now spend more money on paying interest on their debt than they do on their defense budget,
yeah,
which if you look at the US Army,
yeah,
the Navy, whatever, it is so massively huge.
yeah,
It's unfathomable to me. So
yeah, just to pay
talking
debt.
about debt,
Yeah,
yeah.
or just to pay
So
interest. Yeah.
so when I first came on to council and I got to know a little bit that we were paying over $300,000 a year as a municipality towards the debt on the thing,
Mm-hmm.
on the loan, not on the thing. Let's keep that separate.
Okay. Yeah.
On the loan, we were paying over $300,000 a year, and and I knew that the loan was going to be due in 2025 in March.
Mm-hmm.
And I said at the time, let's just pay for it, guys. Let's let's sharpen our pencils. Let's run our books tight. Maybe we did raise taxes for that reason as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it hurt.
Yeah.
And we got blamed for some of that. We got
Yeah.
some not so positive feedback some of the time, right?
Yeah.
And so and now it came due, and the beautiful thing about the loan was I think it was around 2% interest.
Okay.
Now, if we should have had to refinance the
Mm-hmm.
4 million that we're still left owing on that
Yeah.
debt, that would be a massive increase in interest on that loan. Like
Yeah.
our payments would have gone up
Yeah.
for sure. So, but yeah, through a lot of hard work and a lot of talking and convincing, and we managed to do it. It was a huge accomplishment for Bayham.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned earlier, Bayham is fairly small, and that's
Yes.
a big, expensive project that was kind of,
Yes.
thrown on your lap, after somebody else not paying for it.
Yeah.
But it is like you say, maybe you had some people, against your this idea of paying for this now, but it had to be paid anyway.
Yes.
How are you going to pay for it, right? Or again, this idea, well, let's just let the kids deal with it, right?
Yeah.
No. And it does hurt. It does hurt paying off debt. It does hurt paying interest. And that's, maybe kind of for all of us always just a wake up call. Well, what are we getting involved in? What kind of debt are we making? Because we know in our daily lives that interest hurts,
It does.
right? And this does as well. The longer we push it off, the
Yeah.
more money it sucks.
I think a lot of people who purchased homes during COVID when the interest rate was below 2%, those mortgages are coming due fairly soon here. It could hurt a lot of people with the higher interest rate that we have right now. Even though they've come down a long ways, it's still quite a bit higher than what it was during COVID, right?
Yeah.